I want to read you one of the things that organized Scientology does is they say they're a religion and that anybody that speaks up against them are religious bigots. And I know about playing that religion card because I have here, for any press that want it, one of the first books in the 70s on what is Scientology and it being a religion, and you'll notice that I'm one of the authors. It was written by Guardian's office staff. It was written, we needed to get everybody made ministers and all that to avoid claims against organized Scientology for medical malpractice or practice of psychiatry or psychology without a license, for people to get out of the drafts, to get people through immigration as ministers. It was all a front, and we put it on that way. Now, irregardless, even if it were a religion, America doesn't have freedom of religion in an absolute sense. You are free to believe whatever you want. You can believe what Scientology believes. You can believe what any other religion believes. But it's what you do. If what you do is beat people, abuse people, lie to people, commit fraud, commit tax evasion, perjury, that's not freedom of religion. So what David Miscavige has said in courts, and what people over like that over there that work in the Department of Special Affairs in Boston will tell you, is that it is their religious scripture. So I'm going to read you. It's only going to take 2 minutes. This is literally pieces of their religious scripture written by L. Ron Hubbard, the founder of Scientology, that they follow and they are using against an anon here in Boston. But I'll just read a few little quotes. The first one is from a policy by Hubbard called dissemination of material. Quote, "The law can be used very easily to harass, and enough harassment on somebody who is simply on the thin edge anyway will generally be sufficient to cause his professional decease. If possible, of course, ruin him utterly." Next quote, Scientology religious scripture and dogma that you cannot speak out against. Department of Government Affairs by L. Ron Hubbard. "Make enough threat or clamor to cause the enemy to quail. If attacked on some vulnerable point by anyone or any organization, always find or manufacture enough threat against them," right, Greg? "Enough threat against them to cause them to sue for peace. Don't ever defend, always attack." Last one, because I can quote these forever. It states Scientology must respond to attacks, and they consider anything Anonymous is doing to raise people's awareness of disconnection, they consider that an attack, by attacking the attackers only. Never agree to an investigation of Scientology. Only agree to an investigation of the attackers. This is the correct procedure. 1, spot who is attacking us. It's you guys. 2, start investigating them promptly for felonies or worse, using our own professionals, not outside agencies. Don't worry, you PIs out there. They're still going to hire you because they don't have a lot of people to do it themselves. 4, start feeding lurid, blood, sex, crime, actual evidence on the attackers to the press. Don't ever tamely submit to an investigation of us. Make it tough, rough on attackers all the way. Now, why do I read you that? There's more. I can tell you what fair game is, all that sort of stuff. But the reason I read you that is their religious dogma on how you handle an SP, a suppressive person. I'm wearing a hat that says SP. Suppressive person. That means somebody, that's all of you, by the way. You just don't have the hats. But that's everybody that speaks out against Scientology. You're a suppressive person. And that's what they can do to suppressive persons. But the thing is, just the threat of being called a suppressive person will keep most Scientologists who have seen abuses from ever reporting them because they're afraid to be called a suppressive person and lose their family, business, other connections. Okay, the last thing I wanted to say on here in Boston is these folks in organized Scientology in Boston have filed trumped-up charges against one of the Anons, and that for criminal trespass and so on and so forth. And I was the man who runs the Boston people, like the Gerard Renna that you talked to, who's a board member, he's not in charge. He's run from Los Angeles, from their headquarters. So all these seemingly very silly things that he says, you know, like You guys are for chaos, Scientology is for order. That's what he's getting instructed to say from Los Angeles. Anyway, they have trumped up charges against Greg. And in 1982, the current management in Scientology, David Miscavige, was doing the exact same thing for these policies. It was ordered, and it came all the way down from L. Ron Hubbard, who was alive at the time, to find people as part of the church's new evolution in moving out old management and get people sent to jail, even if you have to make it up. And there's even video by Don Larson, who was one of the top financial police of Scientology at the time, on the internet, talking about how he used to extort people and all that. This is not just my word. I've just seen it. And so they will try to get people incarcerated and manufacture the evidence, and that's exactly what they're doing with Greg here. So if anybody is hearing this who's from the ACLU or from any government departments that might deal with something like this, I, for one, am very happy to give testimony of exactly what the policies are and exactly what they're doing, so that you can see. Because a lot of people, it's hard to deal with the fact that a, quote, church, unquote, would destroy a young man's life on trumped-up charges just because they need to get ahead on a pike. But they've been doing that since at least 1981, and this is just the most current example. They tried to do it in Clearwater, Florida. They tried to get an injunction against Anonymous's raid there last month, and they couldn't. And they trumped up. They got a whole bunch of people's names, and they said they must have been doing death threats to Scientologists, and the court threw it out as ridiculous. Then, like they did with Greg, they got a guy in Los Angeles, an Anon, and they pressed charges against him. And fortunately, he was well represented by a very good guy by the name of Graham Barry, and a friend of mine. And they got it thrown out as ridiculous. The police refused to prosecute. But I'm afraid that here in Boston, this kind of information is not known like it's known in Clearwater and Los Angeles. And I just appreciate phenomenally what all of you are doing to raise public awareness on what's happening. Lastly, I just wanted to say, as the theme is disconnection and reconnection, I hope this ties together from the top of the Scientology organization, where it is the most brutal, from the very policies and scripture, quote unquote, that they follow from, what exactly that has to do with disconnection, and why people are living for fear of their lives and livelihood and families right now as we speak. And because of courageous people like you, the world is becoming aware of it, and I just want to say I'm really proud to be here with you. Thanks.
Can everyone hear me? All right, so I just want to thank everyone for coming out. When we started this for Boston, there were 2 of us that went out flyering that first night, and we had no idea how many people were going to show up. And by the next day, there were 30, there were 40, there were 50. At that first protest, when we broke 200, we were just amazed. The amount of people who show up and do all the good work that we've done here is just amazing to me. I can't say enough to thank you all. I can also say that, our friends over there, our friends over here are trying their best, as Larry said, to silence me. I'm sure most of the harassment is an attempt to get an injunction against me showing up, but I'd like to say for their camera that you aren't going to harass me into silence. It's not going to happen. You can try your best. And you can tell I have a lot of support. So I would also like to thank everyone for the help. I know someone here went around gathering a little money for the Legal Defense Fund today, and I just wanted to thank him. I didn't know that was going to happen until I read the sign. So thanks anyone who helped with that. My court date is the 16th. Everyone will know what happens when. Where is Cabby? So, I would like to say that we will be back in May. We will be back the next month, and until we're done. Everyone of you knows where to go and find this information, where to discuss it, and what to do about it. Every one of you willing to help flyering, as much as you can get out there and teach the public of this. That is the most important aspect. Teach them what we have to teach them. Goodbye. Bye-bye.